this is what calcium carbonate would do if it was in your bones. So what are bones made up of? Only calcium? No. Calcium makes bones strong is not just a myth, I would call it a lie. Whole plant-based diet is going to give you all the strength you need for your bones.
Our next speaker is Dr. Madhavi Kathpal. She's a dermatologist.
So hello everybody and thank you for being here. So my topic for today is calcium and vitamin D on a whole plant-based diet. When we use these two words, calcium and vitamin D, what comes to our mind? What are we worried about? About the health of bones. I think there are a lot of myths to be clarified. The two biggest ones being calcium makes bones strong and milk is the best source of calcium and vitamin D. The first is not just a myth, I would call it a lie. Now calcium makes bones strong. Let's really look at that. This is the structure of the bone. Let me show you what the bone is made of. It's like layers and sheets of substances which are ground substance, proteoglycans and hyaluronic acid. So the outer part is called the compact bone and the inner spongy part is called the trabecular bone. Now this is 95% proteoglycans, hyaluronic acid and ground substance, and in that you can see those little black dots, those fine needle-like crystals, the hydroxyapatite crystals, which are the minerals. The calcium and phosphorus gently balanced perfectly for our bone health. Now, the outer compact bone gives us the tensile strength, and the spongy bone gives us the compressionable strength to the bones. If this was a true thing that my entire bone is made of calcium, I need lots of calcium. What is entirely made of calcium? A chalk is made of calcium carbonate. Do you want your bones to be like this? Thank God nature had more sense. Dr. Janice Stanger has shown this in one of her interviews, in her talks, and this is what I love to replicate because it left a deep impact on me. This is what calcium carbonate would do if it was in your bones. Thank God we don't have bones just made up of calcium. So let's see what affects bone health and why we're worried about osteoporosis. So the list we have is genetics, physical activity, exercise. Dr. Joy has spoken about it. I think you all know that when we are kids, we encourage our children to jump and have a lot of exercise that stimulates the epiphysis in the bone that causes bone growth and strong bones. Body weight, obviously when we are overweight, is going to tax my bones and joints. Smoking, active and passive, causes inflammation, alcohol consumption, hormone levels and medications like steroids. So this is just a list of all the things that can trigger off a bad bone health. So what are bones made up of? Only calcium? No. There are 76 ionizing minerals: calcium, zinc, potassium, selenium, magnesium, boron, manganese, phosphorus, silica, sulfur, iron, chromium. These are the 12 main minerals and traces of 64 other minerals, all going up to create a beautiful symphony and create the perfect strength for my bones. But there's a bigger story here. Minerals cannot be used by the body if they are in an inorganic form. Where is calcium found? Is it made in my body? Do we make calcium? No. Do animals make calcium? No. So where is calcium found? It's a mineral. It is found naturally in soil. The soil, with the help of water, allows this calcium to get absorbed by the roots of plants, and the plants, with the help of sunlight and water, they take up the elements from the earth, and with the process of photosynthesis, they create carbohydrates. These plants are then eaten by animals and humans, and therefore we get the easily absorbable and assimilable calcium for our body. This reductionism is a word I'd like to use for our obsession of breaking a whole into parts. So Dr. Colin Campbell, in his 40 years of research on the China study, has said, because nutrition operates as an infinitely complex biochemical system involving thousands of chemicals and thousands of effects on your health, it makes little or no sense that isolated nutrients taken as supplements can substitute for whole foods. isolating nutrients and trying to get benefits equal to those of whole foods reveals an ignorance of how nutrition operates in the body. Dr. Melvin Page in Florida, in his book Degeneration and Regeneration, has said, much research has led me to the discovery that the secret lay not in the amount of these minerals but in their proportion to each other. So what he says is the ideal calcium to phosphorus ratio is near 2.5:1 or even 2:1. And the closest that we have ever got to that is mother's milk, 1.83:1. Vis-a-vis cow's milk having 1.22:1. Now the ideal calcium phosphorus ratio helps the calcium to get absorbed better from the intestine and also helps the crystals to be formed in the bones in a better way. Now we think that bones give us calcium, or we should get calcium into the bones. Bones are just banks for the calcium. They lend and they deposit the calcium. This is the ideal way that the calcium phosphorus balance in the body should be. So what is this calcium metabolism we are so obsessed about? This picture shows us how the calcium that we take in goes out of our body after doing all the work it needs to be done. The calcium that is absorbed from the intestine with the help of vitamin D goes to the soft tissues, goes to the extracellular fluid. Whatever is extra will get into the bones and get deposited. What is needed will get back from the bones into the extracellular fluid and the tissues. The extra will go out in the kidneys, but the kidneys are smart. They know they'll filter out all the toxins, but not calcium. That is fully reabsorbed and sent back to the body. So if this whole thing is happening automatically on auto mode by my body, where am I involved in this? My job was to eat calcium that gets absorbed. If I take milk in that sense that it's a source of calcium, I am not going to get absorbable calcium. We will see why. It has the ratio of calcium to phosphorus 1.22:1. So nothing is fully absorbed, and the overload of other minerals will create a problem. This is a beautiful picture from our textbook of Guyton, our holy book for all medical doctors, how the blood levels of calcium are maintained automatically. Isn't it? It gives me goosebumps when I see this, that if my blood levels of calcium fall for any reason, which we will discuss, the parathyroid glands get stimulated. They release the hormone that stimulates the bones to release calcium, and hence my blood calcium level is back to normal. It also tells the kidneys, hello, please take up the calcium back fully so that we save our calcium. And the kidneys also activate the vitamin D that helps in further absorption of calcium from the intestine. Everything goes to maintain my blood calcium level. And in case my blood calcium levels have shot up, like I've taken calcium supplements or I insist on drinking milk, the thyroid gland then gets into action and releases calcitonin. Calcitonin will do the reverse. It will deposit the extra calcium in the bones. It will tell the kidney to reduce the uptake of calcium and bring back the calcium levels back to the same level as it was earlier. Again, this whole thing is happening magically and beautifully in the body without me doing a thing about it. So what happens when I take this extra calcium? So an excess of calcium would lead to a magnesium. The calcium-magnesium ratio will get imbalanced. So when this happens, the relative deficiency of magnesium alerts the body. I have to save the magnesium. So what will happen? The adrenals will shut down. Adrenal insufficiency leads to sodium and potassium loss from the body. The sodium is the most important element for our cell membrane potential. The glucose amino acids enter the cells because of the sodium pump. Now, if that is not working, the body, literally trillion cells in my body are going to be starved of glucose and amino acids. What will it do? I'm going to feel more hungry because then I need to fill my cells with glucose and amino acids. So I'll feel more hungry. I'll eat more sugar and sweets. And when potassium goes down, we know all potassium is a very important mineral for our functioning of nerves and heart and other organs, including thyroid. It causes a thyroid hormone resistance. So ultimately, what has all this created? A big metabolic cascade from obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, anxiety, headaches, depression, dementia, and the list goes on. So we are worried as we grow old, my bones are going to get osteoporotic. I have to take calcium, or I have to take milk, or I have to take some supplement for that. It's a condition where bone mineral density and bone mass decreases, or when the structure and strength of the bone changes. But you see the word, how do we detect osteoporosis? One, of course, when you land up with a hip fracture and then go to the doctor, or we just proactively go in for a bone mineral density test. So what is a bone mineral density test? Do we call it a bone calcium density test? No. We're talking about bone mineral density. There are loads of minerals, and hence we never use the bone calcium density. We are not worried about how much calcium is in my bones to give my bones the strength. So even if I believe that calcium alone makes my bones, what is your source of calcium? Is milk the best source of calcium? The vitamin D confusion, we have so many names: calcitriol, calcidiol, D1, D2, D3 to D7, ergocalciferol, cholecalciferol. So what is all this? Vitamin D is not a vitamin. It is a hormone. It is synthesized by my body on my skin. But yet, we are told and fed that yes, it is found in ergocalciferol and cholecalciferol in the form of plants or fungus giving me, or animal products giving me this provitamin hormone. And whatever form these may be, they are all inactive. They are activated only when they reach the kidney in the final stage. But these pro-hormones are taken to the liver first to get chemically altered to 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, which we also call calcidiol or D2. And then finally to the kidney, to the active form, 1,25-dihydroxycholecalciferol, which is D3, the active form of vitamin D. So this is a slide. I know it's very toxic to see this, but try and make it as simple as possible, that you need sunlight, the UVB exactly to be precise, that lyses the cholesterol in the lower layers of the stratum basal and the spinosum, which is the lower layers of your epidermis of the skin, and then it forms the provitamin. The vitamin D that is formed in the skin is all partly converted to an active form for the functioning of the skin, the layering of the skin, which gets hampered in psoriasis and things like that when vitamin D is not properly formed. But the minute the vitamin D provitamin is formed, it is bound to a vitamin D binding receptor, and is taken into the blood and sent to my liver for the next stage, and finally to the kidney for the final stage when it is fully activated, where we call it the vitamin D3. Now that is so temporary because it just acts and finishes its job that you really can't detect its level. So we can't detect normally we don't check serum D3 levels, we check the serum D2 levels. So this is how the vitamin D3 is made in the body and stored in the kidney. And the job of vitamin D and calcium ke beech mein, there's only one relationship, that it helps to absorb the calcium better from my intestine when there is fat available. So it is a fat soluble vitamin and helps absorbs the calcium and phosphorus better from the intestine, and then the rest of the story you already know. So vitamin D is a hormone. Among all these three sentences that is synthesized in the skin by the UV rays, the vitamin D3 is stored in the kidneys, it's like a steroid hormone and is a building block of other hormones. The most important sentence is this: it is self-regulated. By a feedback mechanism, further production of vitamin D is stopped by its own self, because it knows itna hi chahiye, itna hi kaam karna hai. Anything excess has to be stored and dumped somewhere else, or it's going to be like inflammable gas cylinders waiting for me. So I'd rather leave it to my body to decide. If I get good sunlight, which Dr. John McDougall says you just need 5 minutes of sunshine on the face and hands to get enough vitamin D if you're in a tropical country like India. So if I say that I will not take sunlight, I will sit in my office and I'll pump in vitamin D tablets or pills, that's a choice I make. I know that vitamin D is made by my own body. I don't need anything else. Dr. John McDougall, he says that the pharma industry has something to do with this, because I don't remember my parents ever taking vitamin D pills or even testing for it. We've been testing left, right, center and getting everybody below normal levels. But he says that the 20 nanogram per ml is the value that medically should be okay for everybody. If I feel there are symptoms of deficiencies, which are pretty rare, because if we're all walking in the sun and getting good sunshine, unless we're using some creams or lotions and potions or wearing full sleeve clothes all the time or sitting indoors, not getting enough sunshine, I may be deficient. So instead of telling my patients, take a pill, take a pill, take a pill for vitamin D, I would say, go in the sun, take more sunshine, and not pop in pills. So either calcium supplements or vitamin D are not needed as pills for the body. The body does its job if you eat a whole plant-based diet. Thank you so much for a patient hearing. Thank you so much.